Hello, 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 everybody. Happy Sunday. All right, 7. All right, 7 a.m. California time. All right, we are about to go in right now. Let me just make sure I'm good over here. Right, right. Give me one sec. All right, sounds like my audio's good. All right, well, cool. Let me lower this a bit. All right, we are good to go. All right, happy Sunday, everybody. Today we are talking about the 5 steps when creating patches. Okay, patches. Really, I want to make a. This is going to be a 3-part series. All right, so this is episode 3 of this season right now for digitizing. My goal for these 10 episodes is by the time we get into 2025, instead of starting the year trying to learn digitizing, we're going to enter the year already either close or at a expert level. Okay, that's my goal coming into 2025 for everybody here. So we are on episode 3 right now. All right, so episode 1 we talked about the 10-point checklist of digitizing. Um, Last week, okay, we digitized a logo. All right, we went into some of the details about that. And today we're going to go into patches. All right. Reason why I want to break it up into 3 parts, because patches, there is no one way to do patches. There's like, as soon as you get to patches, you're like at a fork in the road. It's like, what direction do you want to go? Okay. There's no such thing as, hey, follow this road here. A lot of the path for your patches, okay, a lot of it just depends on maybe quantity, definitely on the equipment that you have. Uh, okay. And different stuff that we're going to talk about, different variables that we'll get into. All right. So today we're going to talk about the choices that we have when making patches. All right. A lot of questions that I get week in, week out is, what type of fabric do I use? All right. Just little minor details. All right. That really there is no, it's not like I have one specific way and that's the only way that I do it. Okay. Over time, all right, especially for us, we've bought certain equipment just to make the whole process quicker, more efficient. Okay. Because patches, if if you don't really specialize in patches and then all of a sudden you get a big patch order, all right, it might take you longer than what you were expecting. Okay. So sometimes we got to know what's our limit. Like depending on what equipment we have, you have a certain type of limit that you got to look out for. Okay. I have the class notes in the description. All right. Really, it's just a blank sheet, so you can follow along, take notes, write your own notes. All right. So it looks like this. All right. It's just a blank sheet of paper. All right. But these are the 5 topics that we're going to talk about. Okay. Now, today's class, all right, I would really, really appreciate it if those in the chat, okay, if you want to chime in and fill us in with some information that you have, okay, because I have like the way that I do it, right? But there's other people that do it different. Sometimes in certain situation, it might be better than what I'm doing. Okay, so everything is based off situation, variables, customer variables, and especially equipment variables. All right, depending what equipment you have. If patches is something you really want to kind of dive deep, all right, there's certain equipment that would definitely benefit you. All right, like for us, kind of the past couple years, we've been slowly bringing in equipment specifically for patches. All right, so you've already seen, I already introduced the laser machine earlier this year. which is going to be a huge, huge piece of like our missing piece that we had in our shop. All right. All right. Cool, cool. We got a packed house today. All right. A lot of familiar faces. Good morning, everybody. All right. I know I'm starting super early. Okay. That's just because, just like all of us, right? Everybody in this chat, we're all super, super busy, and I got a ton of things to do on the to-do list. All right. Especially this week being it's Thanksgiving week that we're entering. All right. So it's gonna be crazy with Black Friday coming in. All right. And then, hey, good morning, Maracas. Did you enjoy your birthday? Yes, my birth. So right after last week, it was my birthday, and then right after my live, all right, kind of took care of some stuff in the house, and then we had a big, big dinner that day that I'm still full from. All right, Cindy. Good morning, Linda. How's everybody doing? Doug. I know, super early, West Coast. I feel you. All right. And then it's Drizzly in LA. All right. Uh, Linda, California. Cindy coming from a restaurant in Odessa, Texas. All right. Enjoy your breakfast. All right. Of course, we got the replay always happening. All right. This download, make sure you download it. I'm gonna have the design available for download, probably for the whole day, and then after that, all right, we'll take it down just to kind of as a thank you for everybody that's here today. All right. Maracas in Florida. It's freezing over there. All right, 63. Yeah, I think in Florida it only gets cold. I know when I was there, it was only cold in January. It was freezing. Other than that, it is hot. Marco, how you doing? Reno. All right. Barb, North Central Minnesota in the house. All right, Jesse, how you doing? All right, all right. If I missed you, my bad, my bad. Mashid, good morning. Jeffrey. All right, all right. Bam, bam. Jenny, how you doing? Daniel. All right, right, right. Good to see everybody here this morning. Okay. Israel from Texas. Gail. Morning, everybody. Starfish from Munich, Germany in the house. Baby Giant Service from SC. All right, T-Town. All right, good to see you. All right, let's get started. All right, Gail. Yep, it was our birthday week. Still celebrating. All right. North Carolina in the house. All right, let's get started. All right, so hopefully you've downloaded the 10-point checklist for creating patches. All right, it's just a blank sheet so you can kind of fill in. Really, it's more of a conversation, and then I'm going to go into the digitizing part. Let's see what we're going to digit. Let me see if my computer's good right here. Bam. All right, so we got this right here. All right. Just a quick question to everybody. All right, if you were to see this file right here, all right, let's say we're going 3 inches. Okay, this is a 3-inch wide patch. We're gonna make this into a patch. If you're looking at this file right here, okay, actually I have 2 or 3 questions. Okay, if you're looking at this patch right here, and the level of difficulty for digitizing, what would you rate the level of difficulty from 1 being easy to 10 being super, super hard? Where would you rate the level of difficulty for this design right here? And then I'll share with you what I think. Okay. So if we're looking at this, all right. So right now, like our digitizing brain is like going to work, right? All of a sudden we just woke up our brain. I know it's early to start getting our brains, right? The engine running. But when we look at this design and we say, hey, what's the level of difficulty, right? And now, okay, so that's question number one. What is the level of difficulty? Okay. I would say this is an easy, I would say 2, okay, but I'm gonna push it up to a 3 or a 4, okay, and really because the only reason why I would say that is so the mouth portion, uh, we would do all that in one shot, so no trims in there. So we're gonna go in there and we gotta digitize, of course, each line, and we have to walk it as we go, which I'll show you. Okay, easily 2, 3. Okay, 2 or 3. All right, basic shapes, right? There's nothing crazy going on. All right, now, how many? If you were to digitize this, how many cuts do you think we should aim for? Okay, all right. How many cuts? So really, I'm looking at like the black portion, right? Like the eyebrows. I wouldn't jump it. I would just cut it. Like the eyebrows, that's 2. The eyes, that's another 2. Each one of the nose, that's 2. Right? So that's looking like 2, 4, 6. And then the mouth, right? We want to do all that in one shot. Really, the mouth is really the only thing that I would go in and like, that's the detail portion, right? So 2, 4, 6, 7 with the mouth, and then the round 8, right? So theoretically, right? 8, 9, 10, right? So that's our brain, right? That's getting our brain without even clicking anything. Okay. Without even clicking anything, we're already looking. Right. Now, the next question, the big one would be whether you want to make it a fill, the white. Do you want to make it a fill, or are we just going to applique this? Okay. That would either be a customer, right? A customer question, or just a professional recommendation. Because if we fill this with white, then you know that the stitch count, right, just gets elevated. All right. Anytime we get a fill, we're gonna start elevating this. All right, where the customer has to know, like, hey, if you want to go full fill, right, it's all good, but just know it's a longer time on the machine, which increases the price. Right. All right. Cool. 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 All right. Let me go back to the screen. All right. So those are like questions, right? Even before we start clicking, we're just kind of sizing it up. It's like we're in a boxing match and we're like sizing up this design before we go in and start doing work. Okay. Really, this one here, my daughter, right? She loves this movie. It's Christmas time, so starting like from this week on out to the end of the year, we're hitting all the classics. All right, we got a list of movies on our to watch list. All right, we're trying to get all those movies right off the checklist. All right. Let me see what the chat. All right, appreciate all your input here. All right, I see some 6, 4, 7s, 8s, 3s, 8, 9. All right, bam, bam, bam. All right, applique. Okay, so I see a lot of appliques, right? Fill stitch. All right, let me kind of show you the final. And let me see if I could get a good. This was just a sample right here. So if you stitch it out, all right. I did a little tweaks after I stitched this one out. So the free download has a couple of tweaks. All right. So you can see here it's applique. I know the light is a little bright when it gets to it. Ooh, let me see. I'm trying to zoom in. All right. So you can see like that eyebrow. The right eyebrow is a little thin. So I'll show you what I did to kind of help it get a little bit more wider. All right. So usually after I do my my sample, I'll look at it and I'll do minor tweaks. All right. The the good thing about knowing settings and having the design where you could actually go in and do minor tweaks, sometimes all it's just a matter of a tenth of a millimeter, not even millimeters. We're even going into the tenths of the millimeters. All right. So I'm going to show you kind of how I go about making adjustments. All right. I do want to. I might also just to see how it looks is to actually make it a fill. All right. Good thing about a fill, it's gonna make it last 10 times longer. Okay. Then this one's gonna last. All right. Don't get me wrong. All right. But if we fill it, all right. So I might do one. All right. JLC. All right. I like fill. Okay. So we're gonna try that out too. All right. Uh, so my goal, all right, later today. So uh, I put the file there so you could kind of test it out. Let me know how it looks on your machine. Um, here you can see it's a marrow edge. All right. So we just marrow it now. We skipped so here on the file you have the sand stitch around it. All right. Usually with a sand stitch, I'll just delete it and then just marrow it with the marrow machine, which soon I'm gonna have videos on the marrow machine. All right, but that just speeds up the process like times 100. All right, especially if you have like a stack of patches and you're just cranking them out. All right, all right, but that's all part of the checklist that we're gonna talk about. Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. All right. Yeah, and then I like this one right here. All right, Doug, thank you for sharing. If you use the white twill, right, just like we did, you can still put a fill, right? Just put a light fill. So you don't have to put it heavy. Fills tatami stitch. You don't have to put it heavy. All right, you could um, open up the density a bit. All right, right, right. All right, and then all right. Oh, this is a good one right here. Put some glow in the dark thread. All right. You see, it's just once we get into patches, the it's like unlimited things that we can do, right? That would actually be pretty awesome. All right, let me go. Let me get some glow in the dark thread this week. We'll make that happen. All right, and then we're gonna talk about this one. What adhesive do you use? Hey, how you doing, Terry? All right, that would be on our 5 point checklist. That's listed as number 5. All right, so we're gonna get into all that. Um, just like Barb said, lots of options. So that's why today, when we're going through all these 5 point checklists, okay, I want everybody in the chat, all right, to put in what you've done, what you've tried, what you recommend, what you would stay away from, all right, because there's some stuff that I kind of stay away from. I'm like, all right, we tried that, all right, and a lot of this patch stuff, the best way you're ever gonna learn, okay, the best way you're ever gonna learn is just buy stuff, right? Buy materials, test it out, because your niche and your industry is different than somebody else's. So something that might work for somebody's industry or niche might not work in yours. Okay. Uh, the niche that I am is military, specifically Navy. Okay. There's specific criteria that we need that probably won't translate to a different type of industry. All right. So, um, and then Scott, congrats. All right. Picked up a Merrill machine this past week. All right. Definitely game changer. All right. You it's day and night. Okay. The Merrill machine that we have, all right, it's the it's the Velcro version, all right, just because all of our patches we go with Velcro. But you can kind of see how it wraps, the Merrill wraps around, right, the Velcro. So it gives it like a nice clean edge look. All right. Bam, bam. Oh, and then I do appreciate these questions that you guys are giving me. All right. And really, this is the best way. That's why I love lives because this is the best way for me to answer questions. I know a lot of times I'm getting questions left and right, either through email or through YouTube, and it's hard for me to stop what I'm doing and go in. And sometimes I need to get into my laptop and do some research to answer some questions because some questions are very detailed, specific. Or if it's in a video and somebody says, "Hey, in minute 5, 12 seconds, you said this, this, that. What did you mean?" And then I got to go back to that video, go to that, right? Sometimes it's hard. Here, easy, all right? Easy to answer. Um, so for this hat right here, okay, I have a video, all right? Actually, I got to find this video. I don't know if it was from a live. I got to find it, make it shorter, and then post it when I did it, all right? But yes, I used the Gen 2. Okay. I would say this is the maximum field size. Like I couldn't go a hair more to the right or to the left when I did this file right here. All right. And reason why this is like my favorite hat, one of my favorite hats of all time. It has the sizes of the text. So the top text, that's a 5 millimeter, right? Everybody's scared of the 5 millimeter text, right? It's possible to go from A through Z. All right, it goes from 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so I like this one just to get, I have a reference, also a customer, if I tell them, hey, we got to drop it down a bit, they can see the actual size, right? They can see the actual size of the text, all right? And then T10, you did this file on a live video, all right? It was actually a free download file, all right? So if you find it, if you find this video, I'll find it too and turn it into a short video. Um, but I know I have the file floating somewhere out there in YouTube land to download. All right. And then the font is just a regular block 2. Okay, the regular block fonts um, from the software. Okay, every software has block 2, or it's probably named something different. All right. And then Doug, you could try it. You could try to just do the standard. I would think the standard MGU3 you could do Merrill. Oh, the standard. All right. And then good one. We're gonna talk about this too. All right. So it's always a controversy question. Should we heat press them or should we sew them on? Okay. We'll get to that question there. Then Barb's thinking about getting a Merrill. All right. Game changer. Bam, bam. Yep. And then this is what it comes down to. Okay. Patches, right? If you do one at a time, it's not very efficient. You gotta lay them out all in one shot. All right, cool. Bam, bam, bam. All right. Let's get ready. Let's get into this topic. All right. Appreciate these questions. All right, real good questions. All right, real good. Now, let me get this. Gail, good morning. Gen 2, I would say yes. It should work on a happy machine. That's an easy yes. I would always call. Uh, I'm super old school. I call companies. Um, just ask them like, hey, does this piece of equipment is it compatible to this machine? Also, emails work because then you have it in writing, right? Um, but usually phone calls work. Okay. All right, let's get ready. Let's get. All right. If you haven't done so, hit that like. All right, hit that like button. Let YouTube know class is in session. All right. All right. Let's go. Let's go with the 5-point checklist. Okay. Um, just as a reminder, I have the class notes in the description for download, and I have our digitizing for download for today's project. All right, the digitizing file will be available all day, just as a thank you for stopping by today. Okay, um, but let me use this as a reference. All right, so we're gonna go through our checklist. All right, go ahead, download it, print it out, just so you have your notes. Uh, I like to write notes because if I'm hearing a lecture, it's like other ideas might be popping through my head, and then I could kind of make a side note, right, as you're listening to this. All right, so let's put this right here. All right, so the 5-point checklist. All right, so real quick, um, of course, we start with the most obvious basic question. Okay, the most obvious basic question, but it's really the most important question because this is really gonna dictate how we're gonna complete a project. All right, and that is the size and shape of your patch. All right, size definitely matters because stitch count, right? Stitch count. As soon as you go, every time you go like 1 inch bigger, okay, it might not seem like it's a huge jump, all right, but 1 inch, you're going 1 inch, right? Stitch numbers are just skyrocketing. Okay. Um, really, I think I know for us here, we have like a sweet spot of a size, really like 3 to 4 inches, because we do a lot of side patches. Okay, side patches. So 3 to 4 inches is like our sweet spot, and I like that size too because you don't have to go so small in the design. All right. Sometimes if you're doing a hat patch, you might have to go 2.5 or 3. Okay. So size. Okay. But even size, even to go with that big question is the shape. Okay. The shape really, that's the one we got to focus on. Okay. So number one, of course, size, right? Big question there, but the shape is the big question. All right. I would say unless you have like specific equipment to handle certain shapes, I would keep it as basic, or at least when you're starting. All right, at least when you're starting, keep the shape as basic as possible. Really, the best shape I think for patches to work with is circles. All right, circles to me all day right there. All right, less headaches. At least when you're starting to get some some jobs under your belt. Okay. I would say don't just jump into a crazy design or a crazy shape from the beginning. All right. Get a couple circles, especially this one. That's why I focused on this design too. All right. because it's a perfect one to use as an example as the initial patch training. All right, your oval. All right, your oval. All right. So most popular sizes, circles, right? I would say is the most popular size. And then, and a close second, your rectangle, right? You could either have rectangle with sharp 90-degree corners or with a little bend on the corners, right? Uh, those two, all right, to begin with. Size and shape, okay? Find your sweet size, okay? For a hat, of course, you could only go so big, okay? Um, Let me see. All right. So pretty simple that one, right? Size and shape. What would so when you're writing your notes, right? What would be a good size do you think for your specific industry, right? What do you see when you're kind of walking amongst the people in your industry, all right? What patches do you see? All right. Good thing about where I'm at, right? U.S. Navy, I see patches. I probably see 1,000 patches a day, like just throughout the day. I'm just looking and I'm just taking in ideas. All right. Um, so whatever industry you're in, right? What patches do you see? Okay. And patches, it's not like industry specific. Like every industry has patches. And if they don't, okay, trust me, that's open season to create patches right there. If nobody has patches. All right. All right, so number one, pretty simple, right? The size and the shape. Let's keep it basic right now. Let's keep it just circle or rectangle, all right? Further down the weeks, okay, we'll cut it up. We'll cut up uh, the patch designs, okay? But there are ways to kind of work with odd shape cuts, all right? All right, number two, this is the big one. Okay, this is the super big question of the day right here. All right, fabric. What fabric do you use? What is the best fabric to use, or what is the recommended fabric to use? And then before I answer this, all right, if you're in the chat, if you wanna list what companies or what fabric you like to use, okay, that way, everybody that's kind of doing research and that's on the come up learning, all right. Um, really, the just in general, the most popular, the most popular fabric that's out there, right? Twill, polyester twill, right? Without naming any, before we start naming companies, right? Just in general, right? Polyester twill. Okay, it can be called polytwill, tackle twill, right? I don't know who owns what names, right? Because nowadays in embroidery, everybody owns like a specific name or a specific word, um, and you can see we'll look into some of these companies. Actually, I'm gonna pull up three. I would say like the three most popular companies that I know. Right? Not saying that they are the biggest ones, but um, all right, let's go to the computer. All right. So the three, bam. Okay, the three companies. All right, you can kind of see it on my tabs right here, right? Tool USA, we have Ganold and Stalls, right? These are the three companies that you're really gonna hear when it comes time for what fabric do you use for patches. All right, Tool USA, this one I've been using for the longest. All right, products. You can see here they have the tackle tool. They have other stuff, right? I know a lot of people are using like that what is that one? The one where you just tear off, right? the glitter one that you just tear off. Tackle twill, bam, bam. Right, I don't know if they have it right here. Oh. All right, if you could refresh my memory, what that twill's called, the one that you peel off after you do the sand stitch. All right, but tackle twill. Right. So this is where we start because even when you get into tackle twill, all right, then we still have definitions within tackle twill, right? You got your polyback, and the good thing about these companies, all right, it's just a matter of saving these, saving these on your as a bookmark, so you could come in and really research, um, and research what each one is, right? Because you have your permanent, all right. So this one here, I like this one here when doing certain designs because you could just laser cut it and you don't even have to sew it, right? So it's no sewing necessary. So you can make like a sweater, like a tackle twill sweater, um, heat it, heat press it, and then it's stuck for life, right? You don't even have to. Okay, so it all depends, right? Oh, hold on. Bam. Oh, my bad. Let me see what happened right here. Okay, hold on. My screen is frozen, but when I change it, hold on. My bad. Let me see. I don't know. It does. All right. I don't think Tour USA is working on mine. All right. My bad. My bad. My bad. My screen was frozen. Let me see. Gnome. All right. Gnome's working. For some reason, when I pop up Tour USA, it doesn't show up on the screen. It's crazy. All right. It doesn't like when I click that one. All right. Gnome. All right. Same thing. When you go to supplies here, our fabrics, felty, canvas. The good thing about Ganol is they'll ship you, okay? They'll ship you like samples so you can see what works for you, okay? That's why it's hard for me to say, hey, buy this specific fabric, okay? Because it all depends. It all depends what you're trying to do. Um, and sometimes I give like I give an answer, a not so popular answer. Okay, let me go on the screen right here. Okay, sometimes I give a not so popular answer because they're like, hey, what specific one should I get? Because trust me, my closet here right next to me is just stacked with different samples that I've bought or I've called for. Okay, uh, sometimes you just have to go in and buy samples or request samples and just test out certain designs and see which one fits your your industry. All right, but usually overall, I would say tackle twill, right? Twill USA tackle twill is like the safe zone. Okay, um, but ganol, okay, like if you kind of look at the twill closely, it's kind of hard here where you can't really see the material in it, right? But the lines, like the fabric, it doesn't run from top to bottom, like that, right? They're like a diamond shape pattern. So nothing's getting pulled from any edges, right? Really, the only way to figure that out is by testing. Okay, but let's see. Let's go back to here. All right, but Twilly, that's the real popular one. All right, all right, Twilly trademark. All right, so a lot of things are trademarking, and you gotta kind of gets confusing after a while, right? Because One company calls it one thing, and then the other company calls it another thing. But you can see here, tackle twill. All right. So you can see here where it is 26% cotton, 74% polyester base. Okay. Makes a huge difference, especially if you don't want something so shiny. Okay. Sometimes uh, it's either two things. Either you do want something shiny or you don't. But for the most part, I know a lot of people don't want the shininess, and sometimes that Twill USA comes pretty shiny. Okay, stability backing, bam. It has all the information here. Okay, um, bam, bam. Can be cut. So this is a big one. Twilly, TM. Can be cut with scissors or laser cutter. All right, bam. And then you got all these colors right here. Okay. But you could also compare prices, right? And you're always looking at the yard, okay, and the length. Bam, bam. All right, so you got all the good colors. But right here, all right, 43 bucks for the. So I got this one here. Hold on, let me see if I have that. I have it somewhere. Oh yeah, it's right here. All right, so yeah, got it right here. Um, so sometimes you see these like assortment pads, sample box. These sample boxes, really, you're paying for a peace of mind and just education, really. Like samples is education. All right, so bam, right here, right? So you buy one of these, okay? Because it's one thing at doing research online, reading stuff, but it's another thing having this stuff right in front of your face, right? With all the colors, right? You have Canva, and really with patch materials, okay, it has a certain feel and the texture when you're looking at it. Right? Not so shiny. All right, not so shiny. Yes. Yellow, black, or this the yellow. Right, it has the description down below. Right. So I bought this one a while ago, and sometimes you kind of forget, right? But since you have this as a reference, they just have a ton of colors right here. Bang. Right. So something like this, definitely worth it, especially if you're trying to find certain colors, right? You get with your customer and you show them all this stuff. You're like, hey, choose a color, right? Because sometimes they might say gray, right? But you want to know specifically what gray, right? Are we going this light gray or this dark gray? Okay. Then you can see the difference between Twilly, okay, and Canva. Right. This one actually feels pretty nice. Like you feel it, right? Like nobody could explain really. The only way you would know is if you actually feel the fabric, right? So sometimes what you got to do, you just got to pay for the sample. Okay. Then it just has a lot of, the information here, right? All the info. And really, I get a lot of samples like when I go to the impression show. So I know there's the impression show in January here in Long Beach. All right. If you are anywhere near Long Beach, LA, right? Just California in general, Southern California, right? Definitely have to 100% have to attend the impressions show. All right. Even if you're on the fence, All right, you got to get off the fence and you got to attend. All right, and then you'll thank me later when you come home with all the samples. Okay, Ganol's always there. I think I spent like 45 minutes one time talking to the rep from Ganol. All right, because sometimes you think you're the only one with embroidery passion, right? The passion for embroidery. You're like, am I the only one in this world that has this, right? This love for embroidery, and then you go to the impression show, you see everybody that's there, and you're like, oh wow, there's like thousands of people just like me, right? Even people that are way 100 times more knowledgeable. Like I'm thinking I know some stuff, right, about embroidery, about materials. I get there, and there's people that that's all they do is like a specific um, piece of fabric or materials. All right, so it's always good. All right, and then Maracas hit it right on the nail, right? So tax write-off. All right, yep. I don't know if I'm gonna be here to attend. I do want to attend. I went to the one in Long Beach last year. Definitely want to go again next this year, but it all depends on my schedule right now. Um, all right, cool, cool. I'll come back for these questions. I know we got some good questions right here. Bam, bam. All right. Even when I find like the perfect fabric, I'm still testing stuff because you just never know. There's always something uh, better or different. Okay. And I know for me, usually it's the sheen on the fabric is what I'm looking at a lot of times because sometimes you don't want certain sheens or you want extra sheen. All right. All right. And then let me see. I know I haven't used stalls. I have all their samples and everything, but I really haven't used them. But I know they're a super, super popular one, right? They have the same name, Polytwill PS, right? Pressure sensitive, Perma Twill. So same concept as Twill USA, right? Where this one here, where you don't Perma Twill, I would say this is the one that you don't stitch on. Yeah, see, offers an applique look with a no-sew application when laser cut. All right. So in a situation like this, you can compare, like let's say your price comparing. You can compare this one with the one from Tool USA, and then you might want to get a sample of both, put them together, and see which one you kind of think works better for your specific application. All right. All right. So that is number two. Okay, that was number two. Fabric material. Okay, big one there. So what I'm gonna say is sample, sample, sample. Create your samples, put them in boxes like how I showed you there. I have my box of Ganold. Okay, if they sell samples, or sometimes you could just request samples. Um, take advantage of that. All right, take advantage of it, even though you're not gonna use it this specific minute. Maybe 3, 6 months from now, you're gonna get a specific job and you already have it there ready. Okay. Instead of doing the research when the job comes, lands on your lap. All right, cool, cool. All right, let's move on to number 3 on the 5-point checklist. All right, and this is percentage fill. All right, this was what we're talking about earlier. So let's go. Let me bring up the digitizing. All right, so percentage fill. So I asked the question earlier. Would you applicate this or would you turn it into a fill? Okay, so um, for this specific example, I'm just applicating it. Okay, I'm not doing a fill. I'm just gonna applicate. That way, stitch count. Okay. Uh, let me see. This is the actual design right here. Okay, let's look, push up information, design information. So you can see it has uh, about 5,000 stitches. Okay, 4,994, literally 6 stitches away from 5,000. Okay, so for a size this big, okay, for a 3-inch width, pretty much a 3-inch height also. Okay, so a 3-inch circle for it to be 5,000. Okay, real good. Okay, real good. Production friendly. If if like in my situation where I didn't stitch out this one, I just kept it like this. Okay, 3,200 stitches. All right, you could do this. You can knock out a good dozen. All right, real quick at this amount of stitches. Right, as soon as we put a fill, right. So let's say as soon as we put a fill, let's throw a fill on this. All right, bang. Uh, I'm just switching it up a tad bit. Right. Let's see. Let me put in the correct fills. 40 underlay, edge run, zigzag. No, definitely have to put a tatami. Bang. All right. Let's see how much these stitches went up. Right. Now we're at 11,000 stitches. Okay. 11, just like that. Okay. Just like that. Our stitch count just skyrocketed. Okay. Now at a certain price, right? This wouldn't make sense. So if you're charging something pretty cheap, right? Now the price, the stitch count went so high that now you have to reconsider whatever you priced it at. All right. So now you could see, right? That so we went from let's say 5,000, right? So pretty much double. Okay, double. Right. Definitely gonna increase time. Okay. Um, so that's why on number 3, this is a full, right? This is what we would talk about, uh, a full embroidered patch versus an applique patch. Okay. Now, this is what I would say right here. Okay, let me get on the screen. I know a lot of times, all right, a lot of times we're trying to compare our prices with other company prices, and it doesn't make sense how a company could charge so cheap for some patches, right? Because sometimes patches are like $5.99, right? $5.99, $9.99 for a full 100% coverage, maybe 125% coverage, and you're wondering how are they making a profit, right? So a lot of times we got to be careful when we're comparing ourselves with other companies, okay? Because it is possible, right? It is possible for them to make a profit because especially if they're running machines overseas, right? We don't know what they have, right? We don't know their equipment, their arsenal of what they're working with because they could easily, right? So number one, working overseas, um, pay, employee pay, right, goes down significantly. But the most biggest one, the way they can keep their prices low is they probably have multiple heads of machines where they're not doing one at a time. Okay. And that's where patches become so complex, wondering how can we make a profit with patches. Okay, this is where it gets real tricky, because if you have a one head machine, it's going to be hard to compete price wise with a company that has, even if they have 12 heads, right? You never know, they might be running 24, 48 heads with one machine. They're knocking a design out, right? Like in 1 hour, they're completing hundreds of patches, where if you have a single head, you're probably doing like 3 an hour, right? This is where coverage plays a big role. Okay, if you're trying to compete, if you're trying to go 100% coverage, okay, I would say where we can compete, right, um, is with customizing a patch. Okay, because if somebody has 48 machines, their only disadvantage is that they have to make all the patches the same. Okay, so we got to figure out a way to make customized patches that suits a specific person, right? Um, that's kind of like my avenue that I'm always treading, because trust me, I'm always competing, and I always get the old fashioned famous words from the customer. Well, I can get it over there for $9.99, right? Which is all good. I always tell them, hey, if you could find it cheaper, hey, go ahead. But nobody could find it cheaper when it comes time for customizing something specific to that specific person. Okay, that's where we, as small home embroiderers, okay, have an advantage. So you kind of got to find your pocket where you're at, right? We're like a quarterback, right? We got to find that sweet pocket, and customizing, right? Customizing and keeping our percentage low, our fill percentage low. Okay, that's like our sweet spot right there. Okay, it's like a, nobody could tell you, right? Nobody could tell you how to price uh, patches. Okay, because patches is very shop specific, industry specific. Depending on what industry you're in, that's really going to dictate how much fill you can put. But for the most part, okay, for the most part, let me go back to the, okay, for the most part, all right, you got to figure out a way. So let's say, take this one as an example, right? Take this one, take this design as an example. We got to figure out a way to decrease this fill, right? Either by eliminating, putting an applique, or like we said before, applique it, but open up the density, right? So here's spacing. Let's put like 1 millimeter, right? Make it a light fill. Okay, so if we moved it, instead of having a density of 0.4, we moved it at a 1. Okay, so our stitches kind of went down a little bit, 7,800. Okay, 7,800. Okay, so we got to figure out ways, right? Take out the underlay, 6,900. All right, certain situations like that. All right. And then the big one that I would say is find designs or companies where you can customize it, right? You still have a master template of the company, but you could easily customize certain names, job titles. Okay, that's the sweet spot. It's kind of like a pocket that we gotta tread, right? So let me delete this right here. All right. So, because it's always a question is how can you make a profit with patches? And I'm gonna tell you that it's not as easy as making a profit like with a polo and all that stuff. Okay, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to get out of the generic area. Okay, something that's generic that anybody could make could um, massive produce. Okay, that's not our zone right there. We got to get out of that and kind of find a zone that we could specifically customize for individuals. Okay, not saying we only customize for one person, because we could still work with a company, but we could customize for specific persons and positions. All right. All right. So that's with number 3 on our 5-point checklist. Number 3 was percentage fill. Our goal in that area is to decrease stitch count. Okay. Decrease stitch count. What stitch count? Find your sweet spot as a stitch count, because you could easily do a 20,000 stitch design. All right, now you got to be ready to up that price. Okay, and that's why a lot of times in that type of category, it's more of artistic than it is like business wise. All right, especially if you have a lot of colors, a lot of cuts, trims, it might not it might get out of the area of being profitable. All right, so try to find I try to find, if I do a patch, I try to find anywhere between 5,000 10,000 stitches. Okay, that to me, that would be like a perfect patch. Okay, now when I'm customizing, I could bump it up a bit, because now not anybody can go out and get something customized to their specific needs. All right. All right, and then appreciate this question, Maracas. Minimum on patches in terms of how many a person must order. Okay. Okay, cool. Good question, right? What I do, um, I my goal is to get an account, right? To get a company account where I have a master template. Okay, where I can have a master template in normal everyday, right? If we're not like buddies with somebody, right? I'm just cool with somebody. I would say 12, right? 12 patches, all good. But if I'm cool with somebody and I know, right, it's like you got to have a gut feeling, like, hey, you got to know when to hook somebody up. Okay. If I have a good feeling, good relationship, and I know a certain person is a can kind of bring in more leads, right? Very connected person, I can drop that minimum, say, hey, you know what? I'll hook you up, or I'll hook your company up. We could do how many who anytime you have new personnel coming in, okay, I can make them a patch, right? For this amount of price. But in general, right? Try to keep it at 12, uh 12, 24, right? Just so the numbers can make sense, or at least a price difference can make sense. Um, but I'm trying to focus on uh, a company where everything, the main design is already set. Like, we're already good. All we're doing is changing names. Okay. All right. Cool. But to answer that question, it's really situational based. But on the safe side, I would say 12 patches. Okay. Sometimes it's just patches is so, it's like a tight rope. Okay. You can easily be on the profitable side, but I think it's more easier to be on the losing side when doing patches. And it comes with experience. Comes with experience. But the more you do, okay, the more that's just with everything, right? In business, the higher the quantity, the more it becomes profitable. And it's just focusing on getting that main template for a company. Okay, you get that main template, then you could get that repeat customer. Okay. All right. Okay, let's go with number 4 on the 5-point checklist. Okay. This is what's gonna separate every shop. All right. This one here separates everybody. And it's gonna determine how you're gonna make your profit. Really, I think this one here, right? Of course, your stitch count really plays a role, All right. But number 4 is your border finish. How are you going to finish your border? Okay. So let's say like 5, right? Let's say you have 5 different options of finishing your border. Each of these 5 is gonna the level of quality is gonna change. Okay, big time. The level of quality is gonna change with your border finish, right? You have your old-fashioned version of just cutting it, right? If you're a good cutter, I know there's some people out there, right? I've seen them when they cut their patches, right? They're like right there on the edge without cutting their sand stitches. All right. I don't know if they just have a steady hand, right? My hand shakes. Like I get the shakes. I can't stay still, right? But there's some people that they got like laser cuts with their scissors, right? But cutting with your scissors, the only thing with cutting with your scissors, you're gonna have some type of fabric on the edges, okay, which can play a role on the quality, okay. If you can cut it perfectly, then it's all good, right? Um, so number 1, right, is your border finish, cutting it with scissors, okay. Number 2, I would say is we could call it the applique slash water soluble way. Okay. Actually, today I'm gonna stitch it out, and I'm gonna do it that version. Okay, because I think a lot of people do it that version. Uh, you'll see what I'm talking about, right? We'll call it the water soluble. It's pretty much the plastic way, right? Everybody's seen the plastic version, okay, where you stitch out the sand border on the plastic, then you just punch it out. Okay, super, super uh, popular way that I know most people do it, right? Especially if you don't have a Mero machine, that's the way to go. Okay. Um, all right. That's number 2, right? Number 2. Number 3, just laser cut it, right? Laser cutting. I'm still trying to perfect cutting it the final, right? If you do a sand stitch. Um, now the thing is, when you add a satin border, that's adding stitches, right? So let's see. Let's count this one right here. So when I remove this satin border, so it goes from 4,600 to 3,000, right? So we're still adding about 1,600. Was it? Let me see. 46. Yeah, 1,600 stitches, right? So if we can remove this, right, you're in a good area right here, right? But if you're gonna laser cut, right, the circle, we got to get it perfectly like on that edge, which sometimes it's going to leave some of the fabric also, right? It's like similar to cutting, except it's going to finish it, right? Like it melts it, so you don't get any fraying. Okay. Whereas with scissors, when you're cutting it with scissors, you could get fraying. Of course, you could light it up with the lighter. Okay. Lighter, if you cut it close enough, it'll seal it up so it looks like, right, it was perfectly laser cut. Okay. A lot of this depends how good you are, right? Are you good with cutting? Are you good with just using the water soluble version? Or are you good with laser cutting? Okay. So what was that? 3? Okay. And then 4, all right. 4, actually 4 would just be a bonus one, right? I'm going to say 4 would for border finish, 4th way. Okay, it's kind of like making it look like a patch, but stitching it directly. So appliquing it. Okay, appliquing so it looks like a patch, but it was actually sewn on the garment. applique version. All right, so instead of turning it into a patch, just stitch on it directly to the garment, but it looks like a patch, but it was appliqued on the garment. Okay, and then 5, which I'm gonna get heavy probably next year. I'm gonna show a lot of it, and it's the marrow machine. Okay, so just like I showed you here, okay, to me that was my goal in embroidery. Okay, my goal in embroidery was to make patches as easy as possible, and now I'm at the point where I could delete this last sand stitch, so I just keep it like this. Okay, laser cut where this line as my guide, laser cut this line here, and then just marrow it on the machine. Okay, so number 5 would be the marrow border finish. All right, so it's just a matter of how many patches do you do, right? If you get to a point where you're doing hundreds and hundreds of patches a month, okay, then it makes sense to get a marrow machine. All right. One thing about embroidery is like we need little specific equipment to do to mass produce whatever we're selling, right? So um, a big addition, right, for us to make these patches, I would say is of course you need an embroidery machine, right? Embroidery machine's always needed. When you only have the embroidery machine, then we got to go either the cutting route with scissors or the water soluble route or the applique route. Okay. And then as time goes by, right? Now we have the marrow machine. So now we can delete that final sand stitch, which takes away about 1600 stitches. On one patch, it doesn't seem a lot, but once you get into 24, 48 uh, patches, that 1600 stitches just multiplies by 48. Okay. Um, oh, one version that I forgot to mention for border finish is the hot knife. You could also use a hot knife. All right. Um, oh, sorry about that. All right. So that's with border finish. All right. So what I want to say on border finish is how much patches do you want to do or planning to do, and depending on your answer is what equipment you need. If you want to go 100 on patches, then you're going to need certain equipment just for patches. And I would say it's a laser and a marrow machine. And as a bonus, the post bed machine. Okay. There's ways to kind of tips, tricks, hacks to do patches just with embroidery by itself, okay, which is all good, which it'll probably clear you from a couple projects. But if you're trying to do this like, for real, okay, then you have to get certain equipment. All right. But as you can see, right, as we're going through this 5-point checklist, there's a lot of directions that you can go. All right. There's no such thing as the correct way. There's only the easier way. Right. But the easier way usually costs money. Usually it's going to make you buy extra stuff. And don't buy the extra stuff if you're not going to go focus on a specific, right, finish, like a patch. All right. And then Jeffrey, right here, right? Every service costs money, right? So that's why you gotta like really have these big questions with yourself, right? Am I ready to go to that next level? All right. All right. Appreciate all the comments on the live. Okay. I do got to go back and read a lot of these. All right. Let me see how we're doing with time. All right. We're good with time. Hey, Bevy Jean. How you doing? Good to have you here this morning. All right. Yup. Good stuff on the chat. All right. Definitely gonna go back and read all these. Uh, bam, bam. And come 2025, that's gonna be like my bread and butter right there. All right, patches. All right. And definitely gonna share all that stuff with everybody here. Okay. All right, let's go with number 5. Okay, so I know we had this question earlier today. Okay, this is the big one. All right, drop my patch. Okay, so number 5 on the 5-point checklist is the backside finish. How do you want the backside to look like? All right, a lot of times all we see is the front, right? We always see, right, on the pictures is how does the front look like, right? But how do you want the back to look, right? So for years and years, okay, I've always studied and I've always wanted to know how do they make these Velcros, right? And I've tried it like with the machine just by itself, which you can do it, right? You can do it, but it's all about making life easy, right? So that was like the route that we wanted to go. We were specific and we said, hey, we want to make patches specifically Velcro on the back. Okay, Velcro on the back. What do we need? Right? And then we did the research and it was like, all right, you need this, you need this, you need that. Okay, so that's why we picked up the Mero, right? So the Mero, uh, it, it, it killed really a lot of birds with one stone because it dropped down our border stitch count, right? Because now we can just do it with a quick, right? With a quick stitch. And it brought our Velcro to the backside, okay? But other methods, right? Other methods that there are, of course, there's the heat press, okay? There's the sticky back, okay? Now, when we're talking about the adhesive, the back adhesive, there's two types of back adhesive, okay? There's two. There's the permanently stuck and there's the temporary. So the temporary is good. When you have the temporary, you peel off the back, you put it on your garment, and it'll hold it strong enough so you could actually stitch it. Okay, so I like doing it for two reasons. The adhesive one. Okay, when I'm doing adhesive, I like the temporary for two reasons. Number one is that it'll stiffen up the patch. Okay, so it won't have it all flimsy. Okay, so here I got sample number 1 that I did. All right, this one I actually did. I used the water soluble way. I'm gonna make a video on that. All right, today I'm gonna make the video. All right, so look out for that. It'll probably be a short video just so you guys kind of get an idea. The file that I have as a free download, um, I'm gonna use that same file for the water soluble because I know a lot of people don't have the Mero machine. All right, so I want to show you how to do it just through the water soluble way. Um, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So when it's just like this, okay, just with the one, I have one piece of cutaway with the twill. Okay. Um, so when you get it, it's kind of like flimsy, right? It's a little flimsy. If I were to sew it, then it's all good. It'll be nice and clean right here, right? But what I like about the temporary adhesive back, which I could actually pull up here. Let's do a little field trip to the companies we were talking about earlier. Uh, we'll go to Gnold again. Uh, Just because Tool USA, I don't know why it wasn't showing up when I pop it up right there. All right. All right, let's take a field trip to Gnold. All right, good old Gnold. Bam, right here, adhesive B backing. So these links, they're all the same, like we talked about. Tool USA, um, Stalls, Madeira. Okay, if you got any more that you like to use, okay, they have these links. All right, adhesive backing, right? Cover the back, right? These are very useful right here. Um, heat and seal, soft sear, stiffy, thermoflex. Uh, is a special film that allows the product to obtain a permanent bond of appliques. So this is for permanent. Okay, if we're going to find the equivalent, actually, oh, forgot to bring my box. Because there's the brand that you buy at Joann's or Amazon. What's that? Heat and bond. Okay. So these heat and seals. Okay. Who's familiar with heat and bond? I'm pretty sure everybody, right? Everybody's raising their hand right now. Okay, heat and bond, they have two. Okay, I have it in my other room right now, but so heat and bond has the purple and the red. Okay, purple, that's the one I'm talking about, right? That's the temporary adhesive. All right, now everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? Um, then the red is for permanent. So what I'm saying is the temporary. Okay, reason why I like the temporary. So again, just so it's not so flimsy, right? It'll stiffen it up. So when I sell it or the customer receives it, it's not so flimsy. It's like nice and stiff. Okay. Number two, they remove it before they stitch it, right? They remove the backing, place it. Now it's not going to move when they're trying to stitch it. All right. So that's the other side of back. So we have different types of finish, right? We have no finish, just regular. You got your patch. It's regular. It's ready to stitch, right? Very basic. Nothing too crazy. Okay, so you have no backing. You have your adhesive backing, which you have your two kinds. You have your permanent. So if you don't want to stitch, if you don't want to stitch it, you just want to heat press it. You could use uh, the heat and bond red, or like I was showing you here in Gnold, it's called heat and seal BSN. All right, trademark. All right, that's for permanent, and then Tool USA has their equivalent. All right. I've used the Tool USA one forever, and I heat press it and it locks down. Like some people are like iffy about using the adhesive, the permanent adhesive. They're nervous that it's gonna fall out. Um, if I'm doing it, if I'm heat pressing it, I know it's gonna lock down. Now, if a customer does it, there's probably a 50-50 chance they're not gonna do it correctly. All right. So if you do sell some of those, you gotta make sure the customer knows what they're doing. Okay, sometimes they don't have a heat press, they're using their regular iron, and maybe they don't have a strong enough iron. All right, maybe they're using those hotel irons, those like little kid ones that aren't that strong. Okay, so that matters right there. All right, um, backside finish. Okay, so we have no backing, no backside finish. Um, Adhesive, temporary or permanent um, adhesive. We have our Velcro, okay, which to me, that was like my goal in embroidery was get to this level where we're at right now, where I'm at a happy uh, place in our embroidery right now. Okay, long journey, right? Long journey acquiring all this equipment. Sometimes you would think that buying equipment is as easy as just calling up on the phone and saying, "Hey, I want to buy one of these." Some of this equipment is pretty hard to get. It's not like they have it ready to go. Sometimes it could take months, right? Even with embroidery machines. I know for a while it was taking like months just to buy equipment. Okay, so we're at a point where we're good. So coming into 2025, we have everything we need for our patches. Okay, which, like I said, as this is episode, so this is Digitizing 103, and then we're gonna do 3 episodes of patches. All right, this one today was talking about everything that we need. All right, so the 5 point checklist for patches. Okay, which is your size and shape, fabric material, your percentage, right? How much of a fill are we going to have? Border finish and backside finish. Okay. Sometimes these are questions we got to ask the customer. Okay, because every question of these 5 point is money. Okay, it's all money. Every time they answer, if they want the best of the best on each of these questions, it's like the price goes up. And I know sometimes us as embroiderers, okay, we need to make sure that we're raising the price every time these questions get answered, and they want the highest quality of each of these questions. All right. Bam. So today, my goal for today, all right, I'm gonna take a break for a second, take care of some business here, and then I'm gonna shoot the video. So I have the free file right now as a download. Download it, study it. Okay. I was gonna play it here. All right, let's show it right here. Hold on. Let me show it real quick. I'm just gonna play it here. Do a little replay. Let me see. 8 cuts, so you can see the trims. 8 trims. That was the question. The morning question that I had was how many trims should we have? Let me play it right now. So what I'm gonna do today, I'm going to stitch this out, and I'm gonna do it the water soluble way. All right, that way everybody with an embroidery machine could follow along. All right. So it does the mouth first. Okay. So you can see it stops I have it where it stops after every trim. Okay. So after here, uh, does that, does the eyebrows, nose, eye, eye, and the finish. All right. Actually, oh man. Okay. This is the edited version. You're gonna have a different version on yours. You should have the version that, yeah, these right here. The applique, or bam, right here. These two. You should have these 2 cuts. All right, let's play that again. My bad, my bad. All right, does that, bam, eyebrows, nose, eyes, eyes. Okay, it's gonna put this one. This is the cut line. All right, this is where I take it off the machine. I'm gonna cut it, and then I'm gonna put the plastic. All right, it's gonna give me it's gonna tell me where to place my applique. Bam, and then it's gonna stitch out the bam right there. Okay, cool. All right, just a little preview. So when I do that video later today, you know where it came from. All right, go ahead and download the file. You could you kind of see the settings that I used. Okay, the sequence, stitch angles that I'm using. All right, just to follow along. All right, bam, bam. All right, cool. And then if you stitch it out, let me know how it came out. Okay, let me know how it came out. Um, and then I'll do another version too later this week where I put in the fill. Okay, we'll put the fill. For this one, just wanted to keep the stitch count real low. Okay, so we kept it at This one here is showing 4,900. Since I took off the sand stitch, I was able to keep it down to 3,200. Right, super production friendly, super machine friendly, time friendly. And that's what we're all about. All right. Thank you everybody that participated in the comments today. Okay, I'm right now. I'm gonna spend right after I sign off. I'm gonna spend about 15 minutes reading through the chat, writing down any good questions. Okay, I do appreciate you everybody that chimed in. Thank you for hitting that like. Okay, make sure you share it with the embroidery community. And next week, Sunday, same time, 7 a.m. 7 a.m. Pacific. All right. Thank you, everybody. And see you next week. Peace out, everybody.